Hello world of YouTube and welcome to another fright-filled edition of Redacted, the show where I take a look at records that have a solid foundation, but a spotty execution, and making a smoother listening experience out of a project. And this month's Scare-tacular Halloween special sees us going back into the dirges of horrorcore. Similarly to last year when we talked about Brother Len Chung's Strange Music Run, we're going to talk about a different horrorcore group's time in the limelight. You know, when they were signed to Island Records and dropped a double album that was easily their best produced, the best sounding, and the best presentation of the proof of concept of the group in question. I'm talking about a group that I know a lot of people probably don't care to hear me talk about because they're so infamous in the scene. They're usually regarded as one of the worst groups in the band in music. But I'm coming at this as someone who used to really listen to this group's music a lot. Talking about the Detroit duo, the Insane Clown Posse, and their double album from the year 2000, Bizzar. And Bizzaar, that I'm coming together into an album that I'm just going to call Bizzar.
Think about your every sin as I tilt-a-whirly spin.
Now, like I said, I'm sure there's a whole sect of the internet, of my community, that could care less about me talking about the Insane Clown Posse. But like, if you look in the background of the Mudvayne review, there's a Hatchet Man hoodie there. I used to listen to ICP. I used to listen to their whole conglomerate, their whole label. I used to really dig a lot of what they did. They're not a group I listen to anymore. They're a group that I swiftly stopped listening to. It was like a switch flicked in my head, and I was like, you know what, I don't want to listen to this anymore. So I stopped. They're not a group I really get nostalgic for or anything like that. But the Bizzar records are an interesting oddity in their career because it was when they were signed to Island, and the only reason why these records even exist is because they didn't want to put out their last of the first run of Joker's cards on a label. They wanted to do it independent again. So they made these two records to fulfill their contract, but within these records, it's like the most palatable the group has ever sounded. You know, the production on here doesn't sound cheap or, you know, tacky. There's some production stuff that seems a little too on the nose, but by and large, these two records have the best proof of concept for ICP they could have ever asked for. I just wanted to pull them together because that's the whole nature of the show, and I felt like it would have been fun to take a look at an artist that I have had such a distance from that they seem almost alien to me now. It's weird because like even the second discography review was almost like an ICP related project. Like I used to really listen to these guys back in the day, but either way, my biggest goal with pulling together Bizzar was keeping a lot of the songs there that worked, that were the most catchy. Like a lot of the popular hook stuff is here. A lot of the songs that I feel like when you're a middle schooler getting into ICP, songs from this were probably in your rotation. I wanted to keep their murder-tastic style in check. I had a couple of songs on here that sort of showcased other parts of their personality, like their hatred of the fame, their more personal-driven stuff. I have one of the biggest singles from this record as well that was on TRL. That was a whole incident when this record came out. They wanted to be on TRL so bad that like them and a bunch of juggalos just stood outside of the TRL studio in New York City, and it was a whole event. Yeah, that was my biggest goal with this. You know, I trimmed I took out a lot of the stuff that felt kind of pointless or just didn't really that had the least substance out of the whole record. But my version of Bizzar is 13 tracks and an hour and 11 minutes long. So without further ado, let's show off the track listing and talk about why I kept what I kept on the album.
This ongoing event has now been upgraded to a national emergency. There's been a sleepless...
Here, I can promise you this. You never hear us rap about the typical bullshit. So, ain't no use crying all day. You need to take a bitch ass back down the hallway.
it's not an ICP album without an intro. I think every single one of the records has an intro, and I just picked one of the ones that worked the best. This intro, it's about the apocalypse, the clowns coming, and I think it bleeds really well, actually, into Take Me Away, which is from the other Bizaar. And it's a song that sort of, it would act like the clowns chant as they're coming out of the storm, coming out of the clouds. You know, they live for the carnival, they die for the carnival, they are all about the dark carnival, baby. And it's just a catchy song to sort of act as a second intro, if it were to be that, before getting into one of the carnival attraction songs, The Amazing Maze. A song that was actually, it has the same production quality as this album, so I only assume it was recorded during this era. It is a track that I feel like is the best presentation of what ICP does by and large. They have a carnival attraction song that's built around killing corrupt and fucked up people, and just basically being Jigsaw before Jigsaw ever was a thing in the Saw franchise. The Amazing Maze actually isn't a bad song. It's really stupid. It's really, you know, goofy, but it's got some moments that are kind of funny, you know. And again, the production isn't awful. It does a good job at sort of having a bit of a carnival style, without again sounding tacky, which I think is kind of a feat in itself. But I felt like it's a song that should have been on the Bizaar records if it was in fact recorded during this era, because it's a good song. And then it bleeds into My Axe, another song that just feels like ICP 101. They write about hatchets, they write about axes, they write about killing people. Again, it has that sort of carnival style beat to it. It's a song that's been making rounds on TikTok, oddly enough. It's another one of those my first ICP songs. In fact, a lot of this next run is, because The Amazing Maze is another one of those songs. But Mr. Axe, Rainbows and Stuff, and Mr. Happy, I felt like were songs that I first listened to when I was getting into ICP in middle school. But Rainbows and Stuff is sort of an optimistic, heavy song. It's got this sort of positive whimsy behind these heavy metal guitars that also culminates to, again, killing people. Mr. Happy, it's a character piece about a person that, once again, just loves to kill people. It's a big mantra of ICP. It's a commonality thread throughout this album as well, this Redacted. But Mr. Happy is another one of their goofy, kooky character songs. Again, just sort of fits really well in this pocket of just catchy gateway ICP tracks. Before going to a song that sort of breaks away from a lot of the murder and stabbing that's been going on, and fades into Radio Stars, a song that is about just not wanting to be famous. Even though they were on a label, these albums were clearly made to break off of that label, but it's sort of poking fun at those that are chasing the white rabbit to fame in a very ICP sort of way. But it's one deviation before going right back into the murder with the 1-2 punch of Tilt-A-Whirl, which was, I think, actually the first ICP song I ever heard. It's a very catchy song that, similarly to Amazing Maze, is just about a carnival attraction that's designed to kill corrupt assholes. You know, in the song specifically, they say that kids shouldn't be around this. It should only be the fucked up adults that are writing this and dying. Before Still Stabbin' comes in, a sequel to one of their songs, I think from the Riddle Box or Ringmaster, which there was another song that was on the Bizzar albums that felt like sort of a sequel to How Many Times featuring Isham, but I only wanted to keep one song that felt like a sequel to something that was actually a sequel to something in the form of Still Stabbin'. Again, just sort of a nice 1-2 punch of a catchy song and a sequel song to get listeners more into these crazy clowns. But the last run of the record after Still Stabbin' is sort of a gambit of the potential ICP had to do other stuff. Crystal Ball, not so much. But Behind the Paint is a song that was more introspective. It's the name of, I think, the biography that they wrote. And it's more written from the perspective of them before the fame and a reaction to the fame that they have finally reached, before going into a cover of an 80s gem, Let's Go All the Way. This was the big single from this album. It was the TRL single. They were chilling outside the studio, all that sort of stuff, to get this video played. And similarly to Tilt-A-Whirl, this was easily another one of the first ICP songs I heard. I didn't even know it was a cover at the time, but I think it's actually a really good cover. I think that they do a really good job at this cover. Like, I actually think the production's really nice. I think the hook scene, like the hook hits, and it doesn't feel sonically out of their comfort zone. Like, yeah, it's them covering a pop song, but they do it justice in a way that I wouldn't have ever expected ICP to do. Before going into the title track, Bizzar, which has a fun little organ sample. It's got Esham in there. It's got Twisted. Showcases more of their label mates. You know, having a horrorcore icon in there with two other psycho clown guys who I honestly think are a little better than ICP as far as Twisted are considered. But that's a discussion for another day. In fact, the hook on this, similarly to a lot of attributes that I've kind of talked about going into my thought process behind this Redacted, kind of has the jovial mission statement of ICP involving Fago and just camaraderie with your fellow clown lovers. Before going into the extended outro big song that, again, feels like a staple to not only ICP albums, but albums of this era. It's a 22-minute song, but that's because it's this extended, sort of big outro song with, again, more of that carnival style creeping back in. In fact, I dare say a lot of the haziness and the crescendo that the initial song Crystal Ball builds to is better than a lot of what they were doing around this time. It's, again, a surprisingly quality song from a group that you wouldn't expect to dish this kind of quality. But it also has a hidden track. And the hidden track is very Far Side-ish, where it's just a bunch of Yamama jokes with a kooky little beat under it. That sounds like something that could have been on, like, the Psychopathics from Outer Space compilation, to be honest. Which is, oddly enough, not changed on the digital release. But there were two of them from this era. There was one on each record, and I just like Crystal Ball more than the other one that was on the other Bizzaar. And that's why I kept it here. But yeah, that's kind of it. Like, I know this is kind of a shorter episode, but I didn't have much to go off of other than just I wanted to pull these together, make an experience that I felt like embodied the Insane Clown Posse at their core, featuring a handful of songs that I feel like are the most palatable out of this era / what would be probably some of the most palatable songs of their entire career. You know, because like I said, the production isn't bad on this record. There's some genuine hook work on a lot of this record. You know, Take Me Away, My Axe, Mr. Happy, Rainbows and Stuff, Tilt-A-Whirl, Let's Go All the Way, obviously. They all are very hook-driven songs that I feel like could get somebody, you know, nodding their head a little bit. And that was ultimately my MO with Bizzaar, you know. And I know, again, if you're not a juggalo, you probably don't care about this episode. But either way, if you watched and got this far, let me know what you thought about this episode. What do you think of ICP? Do you like them? Let me know in those comments down below. If you liked this episode of Redacted, be sure to give it a like. Next month, I will be doing something much more different than this month and last month. So hopefully you're excited for that. But if you want to see more that when it comes out, or more of my music gaming and general nerdary content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons. If you want to join the ranks to get early access content, exclusive content, or to help drive the community, it's linked in the description. I'm going to get out of here, though. Thank you again so very much for watching. I have been Viral Rack. You guys are good days, lives, and situations, and I'll see you another day.